And now we get one more voice in. Madhav Bhatkuly of New Horizon Investment is with us now. Madhav, good to see you and great morning for you to come in as well. How big? We've been asking the same question. Do you think this can turn around the whole construct of a bear market for India?
Well, it certainly seems like that at the moment. But, I think it's time to put a cold towel over one's head right now. Because as I see brokerage reports, read news reports right now, it appears as if almost everyone is consensual that there's going to be FDI in retail, there is going to be insurance opening up, there's going to be real estate opening up. And there is so much certainty and so much consensus that it makes me believe that life is really very easy. But it isn't, and neither is investing. So we've got to, I think, tread a little carefully after such a big gap opening. But I think momentum is very strong. Liquidity has been on the sidelines, and there's certainly a feeling of being left out. So there will be some beta chasers, and markets might continue to rally up for a while. But that's the short-term view.
Madhav, morning. Do you sense, though, that the market, compared to the other markets, might get a bit of a premium as well for permanence and governance, for a less acerbic relationship in the government as well?
I think in the short term, India underperformed Singapore and underperformed some of the BRIC nations. So we will definitely catch up in the short term. And we could go well beyond valuations of the rest of the region. But remember, China didn't particularly get a strong premium because it had stability in government. I think in the short term, apart from the very strong momentum and euphoria that we are seeing right now, I think we are going to be hostage to global issues. Go back to 2004 when the Congress government came into power with the left supporting it. Markets fell 20% rather rapidly, but we had an unprecedented bull run for 5 years because the global environment supported it. So I think, the short term should not be indicative of what the future might hold over the medium and the long term. But short term, definitely positive.
Madhav, the kind of targets people were talking about over the weekends, it looks likely that it may be achieved on day one. I mean, the way it's going, you could be at 15,000 before you know it. If we do get there, would you look at that as a selling opportunity given your view, or certainly slightly more circumspect view?
No, I don't think there is any imminent negative news around the corner. I think the delivery is going to be a lot more challenging. Let's remember that this has also been a government which has won a mandate out of rural India on very strong populism. Now, these guys have to believe that populism does not pay and therefore it should be stopped, and fiscal discipline is important. I think the challenges of action and activity going forward have to be noticed. But the good part is that, as investors, because the momentum has been so strong and the rally up to maybe 14, 15 is going to be so strong and so quick that we'll have a lot of time to take stock, suck our thumb for a while and see what's happening around the world. And I think that environment continues to be challenging. But, even if they do take the right steps, I think in the medium term with fiscal deficit pushing to really the early teens right now, there's going to be a lot of challenges. So divestment is going to do one part in terms of bridging the gap, but on an ongoing basis, in order to have fiscal discipline, you have to reduce expenditure, and that is not necessarily demand expansive. In fact, it's demand compressive. So let's see what happens. I think there's going to be more challenges with such a big, strong opening right at the beginning.
15,000 would be good for your money, though, Madhav, you would see that as the best opportunity to book profits?
I wouldn't necessarily book profits because, that's going to be a function of what liquidity one sees into as inflows, what money that one sees as outflows. So I don't see, any particularly strong reason to sell out of, but I'm not, with such a strong move, seeing any particularly strong motivation to buy either. So I think a lot of us might be compelled to have seen the kind of opening that we've seen to suck our thumbs for a while. So I'd recommend that to everyone. Put a cold towel over your head and suck your thumb for a while.
But what's your assessment of what the money will do now, Madhav? For the ones which have been sitting on the sidelines, do you think they'll just come in and chase this performance? Because nobody's had a look in this morning and may not for a bit more. But do you think whenever the market opens up, they'll rush in and that cash might get deployed?
I think we're already seeing that today, and we're going to continue to see it for the next couple of days. But usually what happens is that after an initial gunslinging reaction, people try and take stock. In fact, most sane capital will take stock. And as a result of which, I think we will see a little bit of a cool-off. It's difficult to see a runaway trended market for many, many days after such a strong opening right now. So my bet would be that you will see a lot of catching up, maybe immediately after the markets open. You will see some catching up over maybe the next couple of days, but I think thereafter people will take stock. It'll be hard to believe that this will continue unless the global environment is so supportive that there are indicators over here to get excited and there are indicators internationally to get excited. So I think those we'll have to just be circumspect and watch. So I know I'm not giving you a precise and specific answer, but I think pretty much I am saying that a lot of the rally is being done right now. And I think people will have to take a little bit of stock with a 15% and a 20% up move in the market in 24 to 48 hours.
There is also a view, Madhav, that the government that has now come to power is probably a bit leftist in its approach to economic policy, basically. What would you see as the biggest disappointment from the stock market's perspective, that they don't put out as much fiscal prudence as they should, that they don't move very fast on divestment or FDI, or something else that you think might be a potential disappointment for the market?
I think in the short run, it would be a little crazy to believe that all of these activities or events that the market is expecting, whether it's retail, public sector banks, PSU divestments, are all going to happen within the next 100 days. So I think in the short run, after the initial euphoria, people will have to take stock because there will be a period or space for the bureaucracy to find its space within the new government. And we will probably, I think, take cues from the first budget, which is 45 days away. And I don't think that the local economic environment as well as the global economic environment in the first 45 days is going to be very conducive for fiscal discipline, because we're still struggling whether we are seeing green shoots globally or whether these are brown weeds or whether there are no shoots out there. So I think in the first 45 days, it will be hard to believe that the government will take some very strong, stringent fiscal measures. But if the global liquidity is supporting, then I would really look out for some big divestment related cues, because at least there's some sign that the government means business on trying to do the right thing. And maybe some structural reform areas, whether it's the insurance sector. But there are just so many small things that the government could have done in the past, and you're right in articulating whether this is leftist in character. Take judicial reforms. They don't affect anyone. Right? There is no opposition from the left. There is no opposition from right-wing parties. And it affects every individual and every businessman. If you're able to get verdicts from the courts of law in 6 months rather than waiting for 15 years, that can't be negative for business or negative for anyone. But yet, simple things like judicial reforms, improving the pace of legislation in this nation, we haven't done. In fact, no government has attempted to do so, which is a little bit of a shame. So, it's important to, I think, put a cold towel over our head and take stock.
One last question, Madhav. Do you think it's a different kind of a bear market then, where we made a low 10 months into the bear market in October last year, consolidated for 5 months, and we're now beginning to work our way out of this? Can you say that that this bear market, which promised to be the worst in our lifetimes, is actually getting over?
We've seen some interesting things which we've never ever seen before in the world. First, I can't recall a market bottom in financial markets with fund managers having double-digit cash holdings. I don't think economic history suggests any point in history where market bottoms are created with cash within the system. Historically, they've always been created with no money left for anyone to buy stock. So this is unique in many ways. The second thing, which is, I think, extraordinary, has been the extent of monetization. Virtually every G20 nation is running a double-digit fiscal deficit. The US itself will be running close to about 1.8 trillion right now. But the monetization as a percentage of global GDP in previous recessions, which has been about 6%, is up to 18%. So are we creating yet another bubble? And if we are not, then at every uptick in economic activity, we will have to rein all this liquidity in. And that can't be positive for a trended market. So I think we are going to be stuck in a trading range, and we've seen a very ferocious move from the bottom. We may continue to see the markets rallying up globally for a while, but we will have to rein in this liquidity because you've just put in too many steroids into the system, and otherwise they're going to have very strong after effects. So as a result, I think it's inevitable that you will rein this liquidity in, and that will cap markets around the world. It has to.
Good speaking with you, Madhav. Thanks for stopping by. No cold towel here, but we've basically been left cooling our heels with the market because we've gone from circuit to circuit, it seems. We're still halted and waiting for the market to reopen. Here's Vallabh Bhanshali of ENAM with his thoughts on the election outcome and what it means for the market. We'll take a break, come back with much more perspective. This is turning out to be a big day.
Markets have to be very bullish about these election results, just as every sensible Indian would be. But only thing I would like to say is that the market showed a lot of prescience by rallying much before the election results, which means I think there were a lot of people who thought that you're going to get UPA or an NDA government and why worry too much about it. Having said that, after a long time, maybe not since 1991, that you have a government which will not be hindered by any ideologies. And what does that mean? One really has to wait and see. If there is a reform agenda, which the UPA has, it is completely unfettered and it can do all three things. It can complete the opportunity, exploiting the opportunity started on. It can do what it missed doing last time, and a lot of people think it missed doing a lot of those things. And of course, start a reform agenda which will take us into the next 15-20 years. I wouldn't really look at only headline items. I think just opening up our system in terms of speeding up things, whether it is infrastructure or whether it is any specific sector. I am not the one who says that, look, you have to privatize necessarily to get ahead. I think there has been enough wisdom and enough experience that we have had in the last 15-17 years to talk about that. Therefore, I would say that you should be very pragmatic. You don't have to privatize the PSU, for example. You can do divestment in it. You can open some sectors, up to a certain percentage, and you don't have to give it all away. So and so on. And I think the real challenge really is to meet the aspirations of these people in UP, Bihar, Bengal, etc., which have, lagged the development in the country. How do you meet those aspirations? And I think Congress and this country will have missed out big time if it did not pay greater attention to these newly raised aspirations. I think someone like Nitish Kumar must be given credit for raising it. Mr. Rahul Gandhi for cutting short or cutting out the politics of caste and communalism and going it all alone. So I think it's been fantastic. I wish that UPA listen to these aspirations and do a great pragmatic job.